Alright, so what I want to do is in Substance Designer start creating some tile textures for our scene. So right off to the side here you can see I have my gutter and some of these other metal spots. The gutter is the one that comes down for water, things like that. And I'm just going to create a tiled material to throw across all of those. So let me fire up Substance Designer. So we're going to go to Windows and Reset Layout just so we're all on the same page. And let's go ahead and go to File, New Substance, and we're going to use physically based material here. We're going to select metal. I'm going to hit OK. And then under Unsaved Packages, I'm just going to hit Save for that. And I'm going to make sure that's also named metal. Let's go ahead and save that. Now, down here, if you hold Alt and left click, this is where you can actually see what your material looks like. If you go to Scenes, this is where you can change it, materials, lights, all that stuff. What I normally do under environment is I hit edit and I turn this on so I can see around it. Let's start off with just kind of going towards, well, let's start with our base color. So what I like to do is under filters, material filters, you'll see that there's one called PBR Utilities. I'm going to drag and drop that into, there we go, PBR Materials. I'm going to grab my PBR Metal Reflective Material, just drop it in here. And I'm going to connect it. What you'll notice is it gives it a gold material. I can change that down here. I'm going to change that to aluminum because my gutter is made of aluminum. I'm going to drag this out a little bit because we're going to be creating a rust material in a second. And I want to start off with it completely reflective. Like let's say it didn't have this white coating. So the way to do that is by my metallic setting here is I'm going to hit spacebar and I'm going to grab uniform color. So just imagine that this is an RGB value. But metallic and reflection operate on black and white. So I'm going to click grayscale here and I'm going to link it to my metallic. Now you didn't notice any difference, and that's because our value is 100% set to black. So as I move it to white, you'll notice it becomes more and more reflective to the point where it's like a mirror. Okay? Let's go to our next one, which is our roughness, and you can think about that controlling the amount of glossiness. So I just select my uniform color and I hit Control C and Control V and I connect that here. And what you'll notice now is I'm all the way in the white area with this. If I move it to the left, it'll bring me back to that reflective material, but I go to more of a matted aluminum material here. Yeah. So something like this. Alright, let's take a look at our next option. Well, to be honest with you, what I'd like to do is, I don't necessarily want to use a uniform color for this. I'd like to use a grunge material. So let's go ahead and type in grunge. And I will grab maybe the grunge map 12 and just drop it here. And I'm going to link that up. And what you'll notice is that grunge, it allows me to see certain areas that are reflective and it makes other areas dim based on that grunge material. Okay, as we move up, let's take a look at our PBR metallic reflective material. And what I'm going to use to create some rust is spots. So my B&W spots 2, I'll drag that and drop that in here. And then what I want to do is alter the direction of this and the look of it so it looks more rust-like. So it has more of a corrosion. So what I'm going to do is hit spacebar and I'm going to look for directional warp. And let's go ahead and break these really quick. Let's get this over here. The way I did that is I hit Alt and I clicked on that. Let's reconnect this. And I'm going to relink this to my input and my output. And I'm going to change the direction. See how right now it's going in that angle? I want it to warp downwards. And then I'm going to go with a value around 64. Now you can see it looks a little bit more like a full rusted look. Now what I want to do is colorize this. And I want to do it where I'm using an actual rust material. So let's go ahead and grab a gradient map. And I'm just going to link it to this. And you can see here that actually didn't change anything. But what we can do in here in our gradient editor is we can change the color of these attributes, right? So like if I, here, let's make sure that's selected. And you'd see I can click here, select this node here, and I can make it red. But there's a little bit easier way instead of sort of eyeballing it or trying to figure it out. And I'm going to pause the video really quickly and just open up a picture off of YouTube of rust. Okay, so I found this really cool picture that I'd like to capture for the rust of my aluminum. So the way you do that is you go to Pick Gradient, and as you do this, I'm holding down the left mouse button, and I just drag a line across the colors that I want. And you can see it samples it. And as I close that, you'll see that my rust in this scene looks just like it does here. Let's go ahead and maximize this now. And notice I didn't have to save anything out, I just flipped over a separate window with a. Now what I want to do is blend this new rust material that we created with the iron. So I'm going to hit spacebar in here, and I'm going to go to Blend. And I'm just going to connect this one to the top input, and then I'm going to connect this one to the bottom one. You can see here, if I have this selected, there is an opacity here. But the thing is, what I really want to do is blend these attributes here with sort of onto this, imagine that this is that gutter, right? I'm going to copy these here. Let me move this over a little bit. I'm going to Control-C, Control-V these two, right? Down a little bit. And let's add a levels node to this so that we can control the, the amount of intensity, right? Like how strong you see in here. If I move these in, it can brighten it up. Down a little bit too. Yeah, we don't need that extra uniform color. Now what I want to do is create a node that all of these will plug into base color, and then we can throw it in normal and whatever, and it's going to be sort of like a universal levels. And that's called a histogram scan. So I'm going to go to histogram, scan here. And with this, you can see, here, let's delete this for a second so you can see that. You can leave levels off just so you can kind of see it. But if we go to our position and I click to the right, you can see that it's almost like a universal levels for dialing that up or down. And if you decide to keep your levels in there for more control, it's the same thing. You just move your position to the right and it controls it. And this gives you an extra added layer. So it's up to you whether you want to leave it or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this into my base color, right? And let's plug this into here under opacity. Now you can see that, here, let's maximize this a little bit. As we rotate around this, you can see how that rust is overall blended. You can see our reflection there. So here, let's kind of bring this down. You can see how it's become this almost universal controller for the rust, how rusty you want it. Now we haven't played it all with the this reflection yet, right? So now it looks a little beat up and still dull. Now I want to create this normal map, so I'm going to hit spacebar again, and I'm going to grab Blend. And what I'm going to do is blend between, and we actually need a normal, so I'm going to hit spacebar and grab a normal map here. I'm going to connect this to this. Here, let's bring this down so you can see this. And I'm going to hold Alt and break that connection. So we're going to connect our blend. Here's our normal map into here. And then we're going to connect the output from here into the bottom. And then we're going to grab our output from here and then plug that into the top. And then you can see here, now it blends between these two, our rust, and our levels here. So it's intensifying this here. So now you can see we actually have height information. And if you want to adjust the intensity of this, you can crank that up. You can also type in a number here, right? You can see it really pushed those values. So let's kind of dial it down a little bit. So something like this. Same thing here, like. Alright, now the next thing I want to do is connect all of this down here, right? So here we have, remember we had our amount for reflection here? I want it to be fed off of this, right? So I'm going to go ahead and delete uniform color here. I'm going to hit the spacebar here, and I'm going to add an invert mask. And then I'm going to connect this to here. And what it's going to do is invert this color so that the areas that are black, you can see now, give us the proper amount of specularity. So, and it's plugged right into this histogram. So as we're adjusting the amount of the position here, you can see we're taking away the rust. We're dialing in as much rust as we want onto our aluminum. And same thing in here. You can balance out how the little or how much you want the reflectiveness of the rust. You can contrast that here too. So here's sort of our normal mapped out rust material. And then in the next video I'll show you how to take this out.